Okay, good morning. So today we're going to go through P26 in half term 5, all about hacking and penetration testing, and how you can prevent against it, how you can learn about it, stay on the right side of the law. So we want to know what the term hacker means in this context. There are loads of definitions of the term hacker. We want to use the right one for the exam board. We want to understand what a patch means, what unpatched software means, and why that is a target for hackers to manipulate it and exploit it. We want to know what a firewall is, what it does, why it's useful, how you can enable it, how you can customize it. If there is such a thing as ethical hacking, what's the difference between ethical hacking and other hacking, what penetration means, what a vulnerability is, and how we can identify them. So, a hacker, generally speaking, is somebody who uses something for a different purpose. So you can have like a life hack where you learn how to, I don't know, use a toilet roll to grow carrots that grow in a straight line rather than into weird shapes. Like using something for something that it's not designed for. That term was then kind of misused, bless you, for people who misuse computers for something they're not designed for. But in this context, we're thinking about a hacker as someone who breaks into a secure network without permission. And in that context, hacking is illegal. It's against the law. Okay, so the definition of hacker, I don't know, hacks a toaster to be able to display somebody's face, burning it onto the side of a piece of bread, that's not illegal. That's a loose definition of hacking where you're misusing equipment. But in the context of computer science, a hacker means somebody who breaks the law by breaking into a computer without permission. Here we go. So unauthorized access. Breaking the Computer Misuse Act, it is illegal, it is against the law. It is a very talented role. You've got to have a lot of experience to do it in some ways, or you can do it if you're completely stupid, if you just run a code or a script that somebody else has done. So there are different levels of hackers. Some people count themselves as very, very talented and look down on people who don't have the technical skills to do it. Either way, it's illegal. But there are lots of reasons why people might do it. Lots of people are interested in cybersecurity, and we'll look at some of those motivations here. So the one that might come to mind immediately is people do it for money, as in they hack in and they steal people's bank details. Sometimes it's out of malice and discontent. Somebody gets fired, they hack into a computer system and they put in a nasty message about the previous boss. Something like that. Sometimes it's by governments or individuals to find out facts that they're not entitled to know for a competitive advantage for your country or your company. Sometimes, if you have permission to do it, then it's penetration testing in order to spot how other people could exploit those vulnerabilities. So that on this list is the only one that is legal, as in not against the law. Some people do it just for fun. That can be legal and it can be illegal. If it's just for fun, you hacking into the government web system, then obviously that's illegal. If it's just for fun, you're hacking into your own computer system, that's not illegal, that is legal. If you have permission, it's legal. If you don't have permission, it's illegal. If you break into your sister's iPhone, if you don't have permission, it's against the law. You've broken the Computer Misuse Act. If she gives you permission to see if you can hack into it, then that is legal. Obviously, your sister might not actually prosecute you, so the fact that it's illegal doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get caught and go to prison. But I want you to be clear on that difference. It's only legal if you've got permission. Okay, some things are easier than others to hack into. There is no such thing as a completely secure system because every system is designed to be used, and if it can be used, it can be misused. Some things are easier to hack into if they are unpatched. Good, so we've just agreed that a patch is a piece of software that fixes a vulnerability. A vulnerability is a weakness that can allow somebody malicious, somebody with bad intent, to take over your computer. One way to stop hackers is using a firewall. So again, firewall can be hardware, but usually it's software. And it's just a list of stuff to block. It's saying, if you come from this IP address, you're not allowed in. That's a blacklist. Or if you are not on my list of approved people, like a bouncer at a nightclub, you're not allowed in. So unless you're on my list of IP addresses, you're not allowed in. Basically a long list of rules. Who is allowed in and who's not allowed in. If you think about the lanyards that you see on teachers and the lanyards that you see on sixth formers, that's like a firewall. You are not allowed into the school building if you're a sixth form or a member of staff unless you've got your lanyard. It's a list of rules. If you haven't got it, you're not allowed in. That's all the firewall does. How does it work? Well, it's just blocking people in. Let's have a quick look at Google Maps so that we can see the United Kingdom and imagine that we're, I don't know, back a couple of hundred years ago. So we've got the United Kingdom through here, and we've got the Spanish Armada maybe sailing from Spain to invade this country. One way to stop the Spanish Armada was to build a big wall of fire, rather expensive and rather impractical, but you could do it. You could pour like petrol in between, I don't know, big rows of rope or something, and as soon as a boat goes across it, they catch fire. That's where the term comes from. What are you protecting? Well, you're protecting the whole country, but obviously people can't land a boat in Birmingham. You're protecting the ports. So you put on rules on who's allowed into this inlet here through Chepstow. So you have a rule and says only people from any country other than Spain, or people only on this list are allowed in. That's a firewall. But instead of the United Kingdom, it's a whole list of network traffic. Every protocol of ports for TCP. Is there going to be a table on here? So there are loads of ports. There's 65,000 different ports that you can connect to. The ones that you'll use all the time are port 80 for HTTP or port 443 for HTTPS. So every time you connect to somebody, my goodness, there's hundreds of them, look. Some of them are used for malicious traffic, for viruses, in which case you can just block them. Some of them are used for all sorts of things. They're just ways that you can communicate. Instead of you saying, right, I'm going to go to Liverpool or I'm going to go to the Thames, you say, I'm going to connect to this IP address and this particular port of that IP address, and I'm going to talk to it using this protocol. And then you can have your set of rules in your firewall and say, block certain traffic or allow certain traffic. Okay, lots of talk about color hats. I'm sure you've heard of black hats, white hat, gray hat, all of that kind of stuff. Some people like to think they're doing the right thing. Remember, the only difference is if you've got permission, it's legal. If you haven't got permission, then you're breaking the law. Good. So if you have permission from the owner of the computer system, then it's considered ethical hacking. So there are different hats. Yep, we covered that. Today's lesson then, I'd like you to try and fill in the gaps. We've talked about most of these things here. We'll pause in a minute to give you a little bit more help. So most people have now moved on to activity 2. You've got different colour hats. Do use the links on here to find out more about them. Particularly interested if you can find examples of bug bounties. So bug bounties is where a company will pay a penetration tester or an ethical hacker if they find a vulnerability. In the early days of hacking, whenever somebody found a vulnerability and they reported it, they might expect to get arrested for it, as in companies would get really paranoid, as in you find a vulnerability in Windows, you contact Microsoft and they'd threaten to sue you or to arrest you. That was bad for the individual who reported it responsibly, and it was bad for the company, and it was bad for users because it meant that things weren't reported. The problem was, if you're going to report it responsibly to the company involved and they're going to get you arrested, well, then you don't report it, and either the vulnerability is not disclosed, or you sell it on the black market for an awful lot more money. So to try and incentivize people to do the right thing and to let the company know, say for example, if you're using, an Xbox and you find a way the Xbox can be hacked and modded, you can let the company know. The company then has a couple of months or a couple of weeks to be able to fix it, and then they will release a patch so that it's not vulnerable anymore, and then they'll release all the details about it. Problem happens is if people don't report stuff responsibly, as in they sell it to individuals, they sell it to organizations, they sell it to governments, who then compile a big long list of zero-day exploits, ones that haven't been patched yet, so they can use it for their own malicious or malevolent purposes. So here's an example of Google's bug bounty scheme. You can find something that allows people to run code on a web server, then something that takes over a Google account, then you can claim $31,000 for it. If it's less severe, then it might only be like $100. So there's not a huge financial incentive, but there's a lot of bragging rights involved here and an open door for employment. So what would happen is Google might pay the bug bounty, but then offer a job, or you could apply for a job at, I don't know, Kaspersky or Symantec or a security firm with that on your CV that you've reported these things. So you need to make sure that your Word document is saved and submitted onto half-term 5. I can't remember the name of the upload thing. What you're seeing at the moment is the cyber discovery competition. We're working through some challenges to secure a virtual machine running Linux. Lots of competitions like this allow you to safely and legally practice your cybersecurity skills. But remember, the key point of today's lesson, if you've got permission from the people who own the data and own the network, then it's legal. If you don't have permission, it is illegal. Even if you think you're breaking into the Chinese network for the benefit of Uyghur Muslims and what you're doing is morally right, it doesn't matter. You haven't got permission, it is illegal. It's against the law. Don't get the wrong side of the law. Make sure that if you do have an interest in this side of stuff, in this type of stuff, you learn safely, you learn legally, and you use your skills for good, not for evil.